Hello everybody, my name is Ebonethos, and welcome back to In a Nutshell, Warframe style with Vauban. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit excited with Vauban. So Vauban Prime Vauban himself used to be one of my favorite frames because of how versatile and tactical he was. Now, what we see here, of course, is Vauban Prime. So he has 100 armor, 225 energy, 300 health, 300 shield, and 1 sprint speed. I have not formatted this one, so as you can see, this is his base setup as a prime. We'll quickly look over at Vauban Warframe just on the wiki, just to kind of give you an idea of the comparison between the two. Something I thought might be a good idea to start at. So, Vauban statistically has his regular form is 100 health, 75 shield, 50 armor, and 150 energy, and I'm assuming that's at base levels, not at max. So, the biggest difference that appears between him and Vauban Prime is, once again, a little bit of higher armor. But we'll double check here just to be on the safe side. Here we are. Okay, so 300 health at rank 30, 225 health at rank 30, or shield, sorry. 300 health, 225 shield, 50 armor, 225 energy, which pretty much just means he has about half as much armor as the Prime variant. Really not that big of a difference. So, again, here's Vauban. Nice little setup for his polarities and whatnot, Vauban Prime at least. We're just going to be going ahead and throwing together a couple simple weapons. We're not really going to be testing them, of course. As usual, we're testing the Warframe's raw capabilities. So, we have our little level 100 Bombard Hitler. But we're once again going to be switching this up to Lancers, because I think Lancers are more comparative to what you're really going to be fighting, for the most part, in-game. So I'll bring 6 of them together, pause their AI, simulate, simulacrum. Alright, so, Vauban has 4 abilities that are really kind of fun to play together, and some of them actually have some interesting synergies together. Now, we'll go ahead and start looking at his passive, which is deal 25% extra damage to incapacitated enemies. This is kind of a unique passive. Not many other Warframes have a passive that directly gives them bonus damage. It's something to remember. It's a great reason why he has things like, a great reason for give him mechanics like stun, or I think even burning enemies are considered part of that incapacitated. As long as they're not fully functioning, he deals extra damage to them. So the first ability is Tesla. Launches a grenade that holds an electrical charge, zaps enemies that come within range. The 150 damage with 10% status chance for electrical, which means they take bonus damage for electrical. And 10 charges, so it means it zaps 10 times, and its radius is 12 meters out from itself. So we'll go ahead and... There we go. See, as you can see there, it's zapping that guy. Now, guys, these guys are level 100, so it's... This is not what I intended to have. Okay, we need to change some health, some level numbers here. We need to have level 35 enemies, otherwise this is not going to turn out too well. So we'll kill them. Drop these down to level 30 enemies. Simulate. And they're getting zapped. As you can see, it's not a whole lot of damage, and people are like, oh, well, why do you even bother then? Because you can attack from the people. And you can also attach more than one. So as you can see, these can actually become quite effective. Depending on how many you stack. They still pulse out of his corpse. Electrical damage. So we'll go ahead here and we'll go grab ourselves some more energy because I just burned all of mine out with the Teslas. So another question people you might have, like, okay, so is he like Avara? Because we've already gone over Avara, and if you remember correctly, Avara, you tap her first ability, and it rotates through these different arrows for her. Well, it's very similar to Vauban. You tap his second ability and you rotate through these different traps here. And the first one you can lay down is Shred, which is kind of a disgusting one. It just does a lot of damage. And I'll go ahead and show, I believe I showed on the mine layer. So cycle through 4 deployable trap mines, bounce, trip laser, shred, and concussion. You get 4 bounces, and you get 175 damage from each bounce. The trip laser duration is 30 seconds. The explosion radius for shred is 6 meters. The explosion damage is 400 for shred. I'm going to say it's also the armor reduction is 40%. Well, that's the concuss. I remember the concuss. Oh, right. I have a cat. Let's get rid of these guys. They don't need to be alive right now. Alright. Go ahead and recharge our energy here. Go ahead and bring these guys back. So, we'll go ahead and throw a concuss down. It applies radiation damage, probably reduces their armor, and if we looked at this correctly, it debuffs them for 4 seconds, which I'm guessing is the armor reduction, and then it deafens them, so it makes it harder for them to hear enemies coming in. I can do bounce pads. Can I move you into the bounce pad? No, I cannot. I love it. Wait, what's... Oh, jeez. Oh, that one's stealthy. Oh, those two are all kinds... Oh! So, fun factoid. Oh god, you can throw yourself off an edge. Woo, goodbye, everybody. So, fun fact about that these can be used to keep enemies away from a point like a defense objective, which is why some people use them actually. They used to be used very heavily in raids to prevent enemies from reaching certain icons and panels and stuff like that. But I killed 2. I don't care. So, that's their purpose. The trip laser, I am not 100% sure. I'm assuming the trip laser is, you know, a kind of a tumble kind of thing where it makes people stumble, might trigger other traps. But it really never states. So let's go ahead and look at the wiki here. The wiki might give some indication of what is, you know, useful here. So, let's see. Oh, something I didn't realize. You can actually press and hold the first ability to increase the amount of damage and guaranteed status effects. Damn. That's an interesting effect. So yeah, an additional way of using that ability, some things that you'd learn only from the wiki. Let's see here. An electricity proc will chain 50% of the initial damage to surrounding enemies, and briefly stun the target, of course, as I mentioned. Let's see here. Anything else that's important to remember about this? So damage is further increased by 25% when it shocks enemies under immobilizing control, such as Bastille or Vortex, which is something we'll get to in a minute here. So Vauban's mine layer, we're going to look here, unlocked every Warframe unlocks their second ability at rank 3. So bounce pad causes impact damage with 100% magnetic status effect. It's actually really good to use against the Corpus. The trip laser, encountered with a surface or entity, the trip laser falls to the ground and deploys a 10-meter long trip laser that lasts for 20 to 30 seconds. Enemies moving through the trip wire are either stunned if at walking or knocked down if at running. So yeah, it's just a trip. It just kind of, you can put them in doorways and stop enemies from running through the doors. Shred. Oh, apparently you get, the bounce is the only one you get first, and then you get trip laser at Warframe rank 12. Shred at Warframe rank 22, and Concussion at Warframe rank 27. So Shred does blast damage in the radius, and that's what reduces their armor. So Shred is what reduces armor, which kind of makes sense. Where Concussion, it stuns enemies, deafens them to gunfire, and they suffer a radiation proc. So a fairly simple mechanic, really, to that. I'm sorry, I have to throw more of these charged shock grenades on people. Oof. That's pretty cool, actually. I like that. Okay, so yeah, that's just Mind Layer in a nutshell. Pretty simple, pretty easy. They're not the oops. They're still there. Forget about that. Hold on 1 second for this. Alright, so there's that. Sorry, I had to do one really quick thing, and might as well just snipe these guys in the head since they are damn dead. Alright, so we're doing the third ability now. The third ability is Ballistae. Or Bellsteel? I'm not sure exactly. I always call it Repelling Ballista, so I'm speaking wrong and horrible because I think it's French. So the third ability suspends enemies up in the air. Many people have probably seen this Vauban ability like 1.5 million times. It's fantastic. What? Shoulder? There it goes. It's a fantastic ability for taking out your enemies one by one. Of course, there's a limit to it. They only can hold a certain number of enemies. So we got the Ballistae creates an energy-based containment field in which captives are held and suspended in stasis. Now, enemies affected up to 12, its duration 15 seconds, at your 10-meter range. This all can be increased, of course, with different mods. So power strength increases the number of your orange eyes critically out. Head on, apply directly to the forehead. There it is. But anyways, so yeah, Ballista is a wonderful way of creating control zones, usually at doors or other choke points, so your team can do some more crazy stuff. Now, last but not least, his final ability is fantastic. I love Vortex. So this is what Vortex does. It's just, And then you can throw in Teslas into this mix and just watch people die. As you can see, they are all a bunch of bodies leaning together. So what is Vortex? So Vortex creates a whirling mass of energy that violently attracts nearby enemies and crushes their atoms into a tiny speck of red. Now, obviously, they can't show that via, they can't show someone being physically crushed down to nothing. So they have to just show their bodies being tumbled around like someone in a dryer. But you got 12-second duration, 50 damage each hit, and a radius of 6 meters. But of course, once they become incapacitated, his passive kicks in and they deals additional damage. Now, I believe there's a couple other secret little things about that, so we'll take a look at that. So, let's see here. Yeah, each tick of it has a moderate status chance, about 75% for magnetic. The contact damage can be increased by body part multiplier, so you can actually throw the vortex on certain people's body parts, and it'll actually cause more things to happen. So one of the things to make sure to be very important is that the vortex does not take priority over Bastille. So if you put up your Bastille field to kind of hold up enemies in the air, they won't be just immediately pulled into the vortex. They'll just be held in the Bastille first. Now, once it hits an enemy, it initially deals a blast damage, and then, of course, as it's activated, it deals magnetic. When the device itself activates for 100%, the initial damage tick is multiplied by 200%. So the first damage it hits is going to be 200% additional increased damage. So Vortex is a really, really strong mod ability that can be used for all kinds of situations and scenarios. And once I mentioned before, it gets pretty rough. I think not 20. I would go down. But I think the upper limitations of what Vauban can do is probably about rank 60 unmodified. You throw in your vortex, you charge up and throw a couple Teslas in there. Woo! And apparently, enemies inside the vortex do not count as enemies because those things did not go off until afterwards. So yeah, then it comes down to what's the weapon capabilities that he has equipped. I am bad at headshots. So really, if anyone really asks you, what's Vauban's playstyle? Vauban is really a support utility tank. I know that sounds like a lot of stuff, but basically he supports people by using his traps, mostly his Bastille there, and then his Vortex in places that it needs it. So those are really his two most useful mechanics, and then his Teslas are for low survival and defense missions, so you can just load up a bunch of Teslas right onto the objective and call it good. Again, a big important thing to have with Vauban is he needs to have his duration, so something to focus on if you're playing with Vauban. So a basic, simple build that I would create with him, if you have corrosive protection, do that, or energy siphon was probably preferable. Run yourself for the standard intensify and continuity. In his Vizarin tree, you'd go ahead and drop down probably some vitality. You might even be able to do some steel fiber because, I mean, that 210 armor might be still useful. Beyond that, focus in the Nerimon tree. Probably want to go with flow to give yourself an extra time. Natural talent can be useful, but it's not super useful. Instead, you want to go for stretch and duration, and then give yourself a little bit extra reach. So that's going to be your kind of your overall build design for Vauban. All right. So this is going to be his basic setup for Vauban. Again, this is probably going to be Vauban Prime, but this is still kind of the same thing that you'll be seeing. And as you notice, I still have 11 capacity. Vauban himself is a static one. You'll probably either do some formal or you'll have to throw on an Orokin reactor. I mean, most of my builds require an Orokin reactor in order to work, although you can always leave out some of the modifiers and keep with your durability, because that's the primary focus of any build that I'm going to give you is going to be survivability. Because when you're playing a Warframe, unless you want to commit and invest in that additional, I mean, reactors are kind of not really a dime a dozen for me, although they are now. They are kind of tricky to get a hold of when you're a new player, and I understand that. So now that he's been modified for duration, we can go ahead and see this here. Just throw that down. And as you can see, it's a much bigger range. I can just kind of shoot into this. Will they zap? Oh god, there's so many of them on the ground. It's gonna be an absolute catastrophe. Oh, sweet lord. Oh lord. Oh, that looks insanely awesome though, doesn't it? And that one Lancer's just taking all kinds of damage. Yeah, remember these are level 60 enemies. So the very fact of the matter this can be done in level 60 enemies is pretty impressive. And that his costs are actually fairly low. I know a lot of people will run Vauban with high duration and range, keeping his efficiency kind of meh, because they're going to be running him primarily for his Bastille, which I will show you in a second here is going to be a much larger range of effect. So his Bastille now, as you can see, is actually quite a bit bigger than when it was, which is fantastic and it's great. And also it has a fairly strong duration. The build that I run with Vauban and the bonds that I get for him are configuration A, corrosive projection with a 306 duration, 130% strength, and 154% range. This gives you stuff like Teslas that last for 39 seconds, a Vortex that lasts for 36 seconds, and a Bastille that lasts for 45 seconds. Now you can also maximize for pure range on these things if you want, and I can show that kind of a build as well. Once again, probably running into, you know, energy siphon, because I was using corrosive projection because I used to be running him in raids before they were removed. So you go ahead in here and you just go, here, get overextended, drop that on, go ahead and get your stretch, auger reach. Where's another one that I can use? Prime continuity for fun. Cunning drift for another one, so that's going to give you your 280% range. So beyond that, we can just go ahead and throw on whatever we feel like we want to throw on, which might be continuity, constitution, and prime flow. And let's give us a little bit more duration. Let's see here, auger message. The 207 duration with 100% efficiency and 280 range. But that's going to, of course, bring our abilities quite a bit down in damage, including the armor reduction from this, but it's super not necessary. Especially if what we're doing is simply trying to make, in this case, let's take a look at a Bastille. Look at that. Look at the size of that thing. That's an incredibly large Bastille. And then on top of that, if I throw down a Vortex, pretty good size. I mean, that would cover a pretty good doorway. And again, the main goal here is not to be destructive with Vauban in this particular build. It's just to kind of be a CC tank. So now Vauban does have some mods, the augmented mods, that allow him to change his abilities around a touch. I have two of them. Perpetual Vortex, which Vortex's duration is increased by 70% of its maximum duration for each additional Vortex thrown into it, basically allowing you to stack like a crazy man. I can throw that into there, and then I also have Repelling Ballistae, which is enemies within the Ballistae have a 100% chance to be repelled every 4 seconds. So basically, enemies will walk in, because they only can hold 12 enemies at a time, but enemies walk in all of a sudden, and then they're bounced back out. See, and again, enemies affected by Bastille is affected by power strength. So the more power strength, the more enemies you can affect. So we'll go ahead and see here, and you can watch my duration of my Vortex. I believe it changes. 35, 49, 63, 77, 91, 105. As you can see, it's literally called Perpetual Vortex for a reason, but it seemed to cap out about 219 seconds. Oh. It's hard to figure out which one's which, isn't it? Yeah, I do believe it's 219 seconds is the maximum duration you can throw on there. But just think about that. A 219 second duration Vortex just sitting in a doorway. Oh, and it's getting low to throw another Vortex in it. Oh, apparently not. You cannot do that. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. So yeah, just keep on throwing vortexes in there whenever you get the energy for it, and it just keeps on going. It's a great way of controlling an entire area for a good period of time. So I believe he has 2 others, and we'll go ahead and find them through the Orbiter as our normal standards go. So let's see here. I believe it is Cephalon Suda that has his offerings. I could be wrong. Usually I am wrong the first couple times. Nope, I'm not. So he only has one other one, and that's Tesla Link. So every pair of Teslas will form a beam that causes 250 slash damage when connected. Now I have the money to purchase this. I'm going to purchase it because I've been needing to do that anyway. I'm not going to showcase the Tesla fields, although I've heard and I've seen them be quite devastating at times. So, something to keep in mind with Vauban. Again, he is not the most tanky frame in the world, but he is fairly tanky. His biggest strength comes down to his ability to manipulate the battlefield. More range, more duration, or in the case of Perpetual Vortex, just high amounts of duration and range again. So, really kind of play with your builds with Vauban, because he can be built a lot of different ways and become useful in lots of different fashions. So, if you've enjoyed watching this video, actually, before I say that, I should probably remark that Vauban is an alert-only Warframe, which means his parts only come from alerts. In this case, right now, as I'm saying this, which is at 10:55 a.m. Central Standard Time on 11/21/2018, Vauban's systems are up for 32 more seconds or minutes. Now, where's his blueprint? His blueprint, like all the other basic frames, comes from here in the marketplace. So you don't need to worry too heavily about that part. But all of his other blueprints, his systems, neuropics, and his chassis all come from alerts. So it's going to take us some time to get him. Which by the time you get him, you might already have the mods to make him super ridiculously OP with range or ration or just crazy stuff. So feel free to experiment. Vauban is that kind of frame. And if you've enjoyed watching this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more, subscribe, of course, to my channel. And if you have nasty things to say, leave them in the comment section. I will get to them down the road. So everybody, thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you guys all in the next next video. Bye, everybody. This is